There's a unique kind of damage that doesn't leave bruises, but leaves you questioning your own worth. When you're around a woman who undermines your confidence in subtle, calculated ways, it's not always easy to spot. In fact, the most dangerous attacks on your self-esteem often come disguised as jokes, advice, or even affection. That's what makes this kind of evil so insidious. It wears a smile, holds your hand, and slowly chips away at your sense of self. She might make comments that seem harmless on the surface. You're really wearing that to the event. Or it's cute how you still believe that will work out. On their own, these sound like playful remarks, even concerned observations. But repeated over time, they form a pattern. One that rewrites the story you tell yourself about who you are. You begin to wonder whether your dreams are unrealistic, whether your voice matters, whether you're enough. And that's exactly her goal. It's psychological warfare, but it doesn't come with the obvious alarms. That's what makes it so effective. Evil doesn't always need to shout. Sometimes it whispers, and when it comes from someone you trust, or worse, love, it's easy to confuse that manipulation for care. But make no mistake, the woman who consistently places doubt in your path, who makes your victories feel small and your failures feel permanent, is not doing it out of love. She's doing it to control, because the less you believe in yourself, the more power she gains over you. There's a reason this tactic works so well. Human beings are wired for connection, for validation. When someone we're emotionally attached to disapproves of us, even subtly, we internalize that feedback. It hits deeper, and if you're a man who already carries silent insecurities, this kind of woman doesn't help you confront them. She exploits them. She makes you feel like your confidence is arrogance, your ambition is fantasy, your kindness is weakness. And when you start adjusting who you are to keep her comfortable, you start shrinking. You become a lesser version of yourself to maintain a relationship that's quietly dismantling your identity. What's most painful is that many men in this situation don't even realize it's happening because she's not openly disrespectful. She doesn't yell or cheat or hit, but what she does is arguably more dangerous. She keeps you in a state of quiet self-doubt, masked by the illusion of companionship. She's not building with you. She's building on top of you. You need to be vigilant. Pay attention to how you feel after interactions. Do you feel stronger, more sure of yourself? Or do you feel smaller, hesitant, confused? The right woman amplifies your confidence. The wrong one, especially an evil one, disguises her sabotage as sophistication. And if you're not careful, you'll spend years thinking you're not good enough, when in reality, she's been working hard to make you forget your greatness. So, here's the truth. Any connection that consistently dims your light is not love, it's manipulation. And any woman who makes you feel like you need to shrink to fit is never worth the space she takes in your life. Walk away from anything that forces you to question your value, because the right woman. She won't compete with your power, she'll celebrate it. One of the clearest signs that you're dealing with a toxic or even an evil woman is her masterful ability to play the victim, especially when she's the one creating chaos. This is not just emotional immaturity. It's a calculated strategy designed to reverse roles, twist narratives, and shift the emotional weight of accountability onto you. And the more emotionally involved you are, the more likely you are to fall for it. See, a woman who plays the victim isn't always loud about it. She doesn't need to throw tantrums or create scenes, though sometimes she will. More often, it starts with emotional subtlety. You confront her about something that hurt you, and suddenly she's the one crying. You express a boundary, and suddenly she's accusing you of being cold, distant, or insensitive. In every conflict, she finds a way to flip the spotlight onto herself, ensuring that you feel like the villain even if she's the one who crossed the line. This tactic isn't just manipulative, it's psychologically paralyzing, because when someone weaponizes your empathy, they effectively control you. They know you don't want to hurt them. They know you value fairness, emotional safety, and understanding. So they use your good intentions against you. Over time, you stop bringing things up. You start walking on eggshells, over-explaining yourself, apologizing for things you shouldn't apologize for. All because deep down, you don't want to be painted as the bad guy. That's what makes this behavior so dangerous. It creates an emotional prison with invisible bars. You're free to speak, but every time you do, there are consequences. Emotional guilt, gaslighting, silence, withdrawal, or worse, public shaming disguised as honesty or venting. And while you're constantly managing her feelings, your own needs begin to vanish. Her pain is always louder, always more urgent, even when it's self-inflicted. Your hurt becomes secondary. Your truth becomes a threat. Now, let's be clear. Everyone has moments of vulnerability. Everyone occasionally overreacts, miscommunicates, or misjudges. But this is different. This is patterned behavior. A woman who consistently frames herself as the victim while refusing to take responsibility for her actions isn't just emotionally immature. She's emotionally deceptive. And the end goal is always the same: control, and that control often comes at a heavy cost. You lose your voice. You start second, guessing your reality, and worst of all, you become addicted to her validation because she only gives it when you surrender your truth. But here's what every man needs to understand. True connection doesn't require you to silence yourself to keep the peace. A healthy woman, a woman who truly values and respects you, will not punish you for expressing your truth. She will not weaponize her emotions to control yours. She will not constantly cast herself as the victim in a story you're both supposed to be writing together. So if you find yourself always being the one to say sorry, always being the one to fix what you didn't break, step back. Ask yourself, am I in a relationship, or am I in a performance where only she gets to play the hero? The woman who can't own her faults is not ready to hold your heart. Let that truth set you free. Another glaring indicator that you're in the presence of an evil or emotionally dangerous woman is her use of your vulnerabilities as weapons. Not in moments of misunderstanding or heated arguments, but strategically, quietly, over time. She stores pieces of your emotional truth and later uses them to manipulate, shame, or control you. This behavior isn't accidental, it's intentional, and it's devastating. Think about it. Every relationship is built on trust, and that trust deepens when we open up, when we share our doubts, fears, childhood wounds, failures, or insecurities. Those confessions are not just conversation, they're sacred. You're not just telling her about the time your father walked out or how betrayal left you emotionally guarded. You're trusting her with your emotional blueprint, and in healthy love, that trust creates intimacy. But with a woman who carries toxicity masked as charm, it becomes ammunition. She may wait for the right moment, maybe when you confront her about her own toxic behavior, maybe when you try to set a boundary. That's when she strikes. She'll throw your words back at you with surgical precision. Suddenly, that moment of vulnerability you once shared becomes the very reason she disrespects you. This is why no one takes you seriously. She might say, or worse, she'll minimize your pain to elevate hers. You think you were hurt. You don't even know what real pain is. What makes this tactic particularly dangerous is that it doesn't always scream abuse. Sometimes it comes cloaked in sarcasm, jokes, or subtle comparisons. No wonder your ex left. She might laugh in front of others. Or maybe if you weren't so sensitive, we wouldn't be fighting. And while others may chuckle or think she's just teasing, you know it's different. You feel it deep in your gut. That gut, the part of you that knows when something is off but struggles to articulate it because it's happening in the gray area between cruelty and disguise. Over time, what happens? You stop sharing, you shrink, you keep your emotional world guarded, not out of pride, but out of self-protection. And that's exactly what she wants, because when you're emotionally silenced, she controls the narrative. She becomes the only voice in the relationship that matters. But here's the deeper truth most men never talk about. When your vulnerabilities are used against you, it damages more than your relationship. It fractures your identity. You begin to believe you were wrong to open up in the first place. You confuse transparency with weakness. And that misbelief becomes a barrier to future connection. A truly strong woman, an emotionally mature, loving woman, will protect your emotional truth, not exploit it. She will hold your wounds with compassion, not weaponize them to win arguments or maintain power. Real love is not a chess game. It's not about control. It's about partnership, presence, and emotional safety. So the next time someone uses what you shared in trust as a tool for manipulation, see it for what it is, not a reflection of your weakness, but of their character. And remember, anyone who weaponizes your vulnerability is not worthy of your intimacy. Walk away with your dignity intact, because the right woman will never make you regret being real. Another often overlooked sign that you're dealing with a woman whose intentions may not be rooted in love or emotional maturity is her relentless need for control, subtle or overt. And I'm not talking about healthy preferences or strong opinions. I'm talking about control masked as care, dominance hidden in charm, and manipulation disguised as love. It's the kind of behavior that leaves you feeling like you're walking on eggshells, constantly adjusting who you are to meet ever, changing rules you didn't agree to. Control can take many forms. It might start with small, seemingly harmless suggestions: what you should wear, who you should talk to, when you should go out. At first, it feels like involvement, maybe even affection. You might tell yourself, she just cares, or she wants the best for me. But when someone truly respects you, they don't try to reshape you into a version that fits their insecurities. They honor your autonomy. In relationships with toxic control dynamics, you'll find your boundaries slowly being erased. She'll make unilateral decisions and expect your agreement. She might guilt you for spending time with family or friends, subtly implying that your loyalty should be exclusive to her. If you speak up or push back, suddenly you become the problem. She'll accuse you of being distant, uncaring, or even disloyal. This is not love. This is control wrapped in emotional blackmail. One of the most dangerous aspects of this pattern is that it conditions you to associate love with obedience. You start to believe that pleasing her, even at the cost of your own values, is what love requires. You become afraid to disappoint, afraid to be misunderstood, and eventually afraid to be yourself. And that's when she knows she has you, because you're no longer operating from a place of self-assurance, but from fear of loss and emotional chaos. This dynamic often plays out in disagreements. A mature woman will argue with the intention of understanding, but a controlling woman argues to dominate. She doesn't seek resolution, she seeks submission. Every conversation becomes a test of power. And if you don't concede, she finds ways to punish, use silence, emotional withdrawal, or public embarrassment. That's not conflict resolution, that's coercion. The truth is, real love thrives where freedom exists, where you can be yourself, fully, unapologetically, and still be seen, heard, and valued. A relationship built on control is not a partnership. It's a power structure, and the longer you stay in it, the more you lose your voice, your confidence, and eventually, your identity. Gentlemen, here's what I want you to remember. A woman who loves you will never make you feel like you have to choose between your peace and her approval. She won't shrink you to feel safe or stifle you to feel secure. Love doesn't demand control, it invites collaboration. And any woman who demands your submission rather than earning your trust isn't offering you love. She's offering you a prison with pretty walls. Choose freedom over fear. Because the moment you reclaim your right to be your full self, you also reclaim the kind of love that's worthy of you. Another deeply revealing sign of an emotionally destructive or even evil woman is her delight in chaos, her quiet addiction to drama, her ability to destabilize peace and call it passion. These are women who operate not from a place of calm self-awareness, but from a psychological need to stir emotion, even if it means creating pain. And often you don't realize you're in her storm until the damage is already done. She thrives on emotional volatility. The relationship feels like a roller coaster. One day she's showering you with affection. The next she's cold, withdrawn, or angry over something trivial. This erratic behavior isn't accidental. It's a form of control rooted in unpredictability. When someone keeps you emotionally off balance, they also keep you mentally distracted and spiritually exhausted. You spend more time trying to understand her moods than checking in with your own. What's truly dangerous is that she may even weaponize vulnerability. She'll open up just enough to draw you in, to convince you that beneath all the turbulence, she's just a damaged soul who needs love. And while compassion is important in any relationship, empathy should never become a tool for manipulation. If someone uses their pain as an excuse to mistreat you, or worse, uses your empathy as leverage, that's no longer a relationship. That's psychological entrapment. You'll often find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, walking away from arguments confused about how they even started, and trying to fix problems that were designed to be unsolvable. She'll twist your words, reinterpret your silence, and accuse you of intentions you never had. That's not miscommunication. That's deliberate distortion, and it's one of the clearest signs that you're dealing with someone who doesn't want harmony. She wants control through emotional chaos. You might think, maybe if I'm more patient, more understanding, more loving, she'll change. But here's the truth. People who are addicted to chaos aren't looking for healing. They're looking for an audience. And the moment you stop reacting, the moment you stop feeding that drama, they either escalate or move on to someone else who will. This kind of woman sees peace as a threat. Calm makes her uncomfortable because it forces her to sit with her own thoughts, her own insecurities, her own void. So instead, she creates disruption. It becomes her identity, and the longer you stay, the more you begin to confuse instability with intensity. But passion without peace isn't love, it's addiction to dysfunction. So if you find yourself constantly drained, constantly guessing, constantly repairing damage you didn't cause, take a step back. Ask yourself, am I growing in this relationship, or am I just surviving it? Because you deserve more than emotional turbulence disguised as love. You deserve clarity, stability, and a partner who brings calm, not chaos. Remember, peace isn't boring. Peace is powerful, and any woman who disrupts your peace to validate her presence isn't a queen. You're just her latest battlefield. Walk away from the war and choose the calm that builds you instead of the chaos that breaks you. One of the most subtle yet dangerous signs of an evil, spirited woman is her ability to isolate you mentally, emotionally, even socially, without you realizing it. Unlike outright possessiveness or loud jealousy, this type of isolation is slow, almost surgical. She'll cloak it in the language of love. I just want us to have more time together. Or they don't understand our relationship. But in reality, what she's doing is severing the lifelines that keep you balanced and self-aware. It begins with small suggestions. She questions the intentions of your closest friends. She points out how your family doesn't truly support you. At first, it seems like she's just being protective, maybe even intuitive, but over time, you start to withdraw. You stop sharing your thoughts with others. You begin to doubt the people who have stood by you for years. And before you know it, the only voice that dominates your inner world is hers. That is not love. That is a power play. A woman who isolates you is not doing it because she cares about your well-being. She's doing it because she knows that influence thrives best in silence. When you no longer have outside perspectives, when you stop engaging with those who see through her facade, you become easier to control, easier to manipulate, and easier to break down. Isolation is the soil where emotional dependence grows unchecked. The irony is that this tactic often works best on men who are strong, because strength, when not regularly reflected upon, can be redirected. A strong man who has no mirrors, no friends, no family, no brotherhood can be convinced of anything if his strength becomes directionless. That's what makes this particular behavior so alarming. It doesn't attack you directly. It reorients your compass until you no longer trust your own North Star. And let's be clear, real love doesn't shrink your world, it expands it. A woman who truly cares about you will encourage connection, not control. She will want to see you thrive within your community, not retreat from it. She will push you toward growth, not isolation. Because someone who loves you wants you to be more, not less. But an evil-hearted woman, she wants to become your only source of validation, of purpose, of identity. Not because she values you, but because she knows that once you forget who you are, she can redefine you to fit her needs. So take a hard look at your world. Have your friendships dimmed since she entered your life? Do you feel like you're walking through life with fewer voices in your corner, fewer hands on your shoulder, fewer truths being spoken into your ears? That silence isn't peace, it's programming. Never mistake isolation for intimacy. One is built on trust and freedom, the other is built on fear and control. And no matter how attractive the packaging, the person who leads you into loneliness is not your partner. They are your prison. Reclaim your voice. Reclaim your circle. Because the man who stands alone in the name of love often finds he's been standing in the shadow of manipulation.